Good morning. It's Monday. It's the 1st of July. It's 2024. It's also a holiday. So it's Liberation Monday. My name is Jesse, the African Son. Now, we just had this great transition. Normally, we would be three introverts in the studios. Today, we are delighted to have an extrovert who joins the show. We can only hope for better, if not for worse.
Why worse? But anyway, you'll be ready for anything.
I mean, yeah, we have to be ready for anything.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you Juliana, who is my co-host today in the studios. How you doing, Juliana?
Fantastic. I'm doing very well. I'm loving it here. I just met an extreme introvert, I think.
One who hates on people.
I know. I don't even think he hates on people, really.
No,
I don't think so. But surprisingly, he's a smiley introvert.
Yeah, he is.
I'm yet to find out exactly how that works. Yeah.
Well, I just disclaimer. I always make this joke all the time, but it's true. The Americans have a saying. I think even in Rwanda we have it in the Constitution. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be turned or will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford one will be appointed for you. I think it's the Fifth Amendment or something like that. So when someone says I plead the Fifth, it means they're quiet. They're not going to say anything.
So you're pleading the Fifth?
They can neither confirm nor deny those allegations.
NASA is joining us this Monday on the 8 at 8. We're here to explore the profound concepts that shape our lives. And as of yesterday, he said he wants us to talk about the being and the becoming. Now, often used interchangeably, these terms have distinct meanings and implications. NASA argues that most people focused more on becoming rather than being. Sounds simple, but can be very complicated as well. Okay. Now, we just want to dive into this, understanding the differences between these concepts. Which could fundamentally change how we approach our lives. NASA, now that you're here, it's Monday, it's a holiday. Could you explain in your own words what being and becoming mean and how they differ?
So, a lot of our listeners who listen to my segment of the show on Mondays are the type that well-read. They like Googling things and being like, aha, I caught you. That's not true. This is not correct. You know what I mean? Like they think they're very smart, right? But they don't understand.
I think they are.
They think they are.
I think they
I'm
are.
using the word they think they are because if you're that kind of person that reads stuff in a book and then translate it directly the way it was translated, you're like, in this book that I read, Jesse, Soren Kierkegaard says the bird in the sky and the lily of the field is about this and that and that and that, and you don't actually grasp the message, you're not very smart.
You're just reading.
You just will read. You're like a good memory chip. You're good at cramming and then recycling information. So for the last number of shows that I've been on this show, all going way back, I've been teaching. Now, I've been teaching not because I'm the subject.
Mr. Teacher.
I'm not the subject matter expert. I keep saying that all the time. So I've been teaching people only one thing, which is how to understand the information and digest it and then apply it to their world. And I've been telling them nothing is set in stone. And I've had very many lessons. We've had lessons on conflict. We've had lessons on fluid personalities. We've had lessons on spectrums. We've had lessons on so many things. And today is the exam. Being versus becoming. So for all the smart people out there, I think the engineers are like, okay, in metaphysics, being represents a static, unchanged present. On the other hand, the idea of becoming is about change and transformation over time. Yes, that's what they wrote on Wikipedia, on the internet. But no. Let's now get into how this applies to your life. And then the philosophers, they're also thinking about Heidegger and talking about how Heidegger was talking about beings being like different versions of things like substance, quantity, quality, relatives, somewhere, sometime, being in a position, You know those things, those people who say a state of superposition, acting, being upon, that's being, right? And then becoming is the constant change and all that. But yeah, today that's not it. Like, forget everything you know. It's like coming to Africa and you meet Ephraim and he's going to teach you about entrepreneurship in Africa. You need to forget all the Adam Smith you studied. You need to forget all the stuff they taught you. In Africa, we have a different kind of place.
Handling, yes.
We don't, gravity doesn't even work in Africa. You know, in Africa,
It
it's the
doesn't?
It
no,
doesn't.
it doesn't. In Africa, it's the only place where you find a minister is serving time in prison. Like, constitutionally, if you're a minister and then you get any sort of case, even if it's a DOI, you have to resign. But in Africa, in some countries, ministers. So like,
So the dynamics here are totally different.
Yes.
Yes.
So Africa is literally the biggest continent out there with all the resources, and here gravity doesn't work. I think we have a different measurement of gravity. In fact, all the stuff they taught us in physics, we need to check in Africa if it applies.
We have a
Because,
different, which we have to come up with a different
yes,
name.
with our own
Gravity.
African version. Even African time is different. 8 a.m. in Africa is not 8 a.m. Like, you guys know what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
it's somewhere at,
you
at
need to
11.
when you're doing an invitation for us, you have to do it a different way. Anyway, let me stop stereotyping.
That's being and becoming.
Let me stop stereotyping and get into the conversation. So today, like Jesse mentioned, I wanted to contrast between something that for all intensive purposes we are going to call being, and then something that we're going to call becoming. The two states in your life. And as your life coach, I'm going to tell you how the two can affect your life, and forget about all the so-called definitions and all that. So for all intensive purposes, today we are going to describe being as you. What makes you you? You, Jesse, right?
You know, at the back of my mind, I have this book, Becoming Michelle Obama.
Yes. So being is
Oh,
what.
you read that book?
Yeah.
No, I haven't read it, but when he's speaking about being and becoming, then it rings in my head. Becoming Michelle Obama.
I think it's just totally, I have a different perception about that. I think it's important to be before you become.
Now, I agree with you. So I'm talking about being. Being is what makes you you. And then becoming is how you interact with the external world, the external forces. So let me give you a simple definition of being. Being is what makes you you. So if you're listening to this and you're a doctor, that's not being. That's your job. That's becoming. If you're listening to this and you're a pilot, that's not being. That's becoming. If you're listening to this and you're a teacher, a student, all that stuff doesn't matter. Being isn't any of that stuff. Being isn't the skill sets you have. Being isn't the stuff you studied in school. Being isn't so let's get into a little bit of what being is. Being is you're claustrophobic and you don't know why. That's being. Your favorite color is blue. You just don't know why it's blue. You just picked it off a spectrum. That's being. You're between a tea or coffee person, or you're neither of the two. You're an introvert or extrovert. That's being. Like, you just don't know why you are. You're just that. You easily have anger management issues. That's being. By the way, your children, your spouse, your family, the bank account balance, that's not being. That has
That's
nothing
becoming.
to do with being. So being is who you are, and it's a state that constantly evolves as you grow older. It gets better. It's not a spectrum. So in being, you can't move forward and backwards. In being, you only move forward like time. So from the time when you were a baby, you were still being. And then from the time when you're a toddler, from the time you're in high school, from the time you're at uni, you keep going upwards and you've learned so many things. Now that's your being. So being is mostly in a state of self-awareness. Now, a lot of people are not very self-aware. By the way, speaking of self-awareness, people like using the statement, it is common sense, but that's not true. Like, don't ever assume that people are self-aware or they have that common sense and all that. So being is a lot of things, and being is the hardest thing ever out there to master. And then now becoming is everything external: your job, your spouse, your children, your money, your career, whatever you want to become and all that. Now becoming is in a constant state of flux. You can think about it like a metronome, or that thing, the pendulum that keeps swinging east, west, with momentum. Sometimes it's still, sometimes it's moving. So becoming, you try out new stuff, get beaten, then you leave it alone, try out the other stuff, get bitten. It's like trying new drinks. You're like, yeah, that didn't work out for me. I think I'm going to try a different type of drink. Yeah, until you like master your things. You're like, me, I like coffee because the taste is blah, blah, blah. Or I'm a tea person because coffee gives me palpitations and all that. So that's becoming. Becoming is constantly changing. Now, with becoming, you are allowed to constantly change your becoming. If you change your values every day and every week and whatever, you're becoming. But the being is something that you're never going to change. It's a constant thing. It just keeps evolving with time and gets better. And why we are jumping into this conversation today is because a lot of people out there right now, they're struggling with different things in life, and they don't understand that they've jumped straight into the becoming because this is the state of affairs that we live in. We are doing public personas. We are in the society of the spectacle. You're out there trying to become. That's why when you go to social media, all the videos you see there are about becoming. I have a better Bugatti. I just recently went to the Maldives, blah, blah, blah. That's all becoming because it's external, because the being, you cannot record it. Being is inside you and there's no camera to record that. So people have not mastered their being and they are struggling with becoming, and they don't understand why, because the foundation of your becoming is being. And if you concentrate on the being and getting yourself personally better, then the becoming is automatic. That's why you find people chanting, I call them chants, statements like, I don't care if they like me, I do whatever I like, I don't care how they see me, I don't care. You're caring about what people think of you because you've not yet nailed down the becoming. The antithesis is that the moment you're telling people you don't care if they like you or hate you, it means you care what
You
they
actually
think.
care, yeah.
But people who have nailed down being don't even care. Like, they can't even say it. You're not going to hear them saying a statement like, I don't care if people like me. They don't even know that people, basically, let me put it this way, they're not worried about what people think. So for you, you're busy saying that statement, thinking you're convincing us in the room, but you're convincing yourself. And now the rest of us trolls, we are just going to make fun of you. We are like, sure, do tell.
Listen, the point where you mentioned that becoming is like swinging like
Yes.
a pendulum. That means you're dynamic. And
Yes.
you spoke about something to do with values.
Yeah.
That your values could be this today and then they change
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Would you want to be in a space where people shift their values one time after the other?
Yes, because it is a sign of intelligence that you shift with the flow, you shift with the change. I'll give you a quick example, Jesse. I think you've seen politics. One of the most controversial topics in the world is politics, as an example. 5 years before, as a politician, you say, as the Republican, I'm going to increase funding to this, that, this, that, this, that. 5 years later, there's a COVID pandemic, and now you've shifted your values to, let's concentrate on emergency response, because when COVID caught us off guard, we had not yet worked on that. We were busy making war budgets. We were busy making this kind. So you shift your values. You're like, my values have shifted because the pandemic taught me what's more important than that. And you're shifting. Another example would be, in your relationships, you guys meet each other, you're a bit younger, and you're thinking about, let's travel the world, let's, do this, that. You see the first 3 countries you go to, you're excited. The next 10 don't make any difference. It's the same. Then you're like, I think we need to change our values now. We've traveled. Let's think about something different. Let's change the approach. That's the becoming. I think it's nice to be around people who keep changing their values. But like I said, Jesse, that being is a totally different thing. You cannot wake up in the morning tomorrow and you say, I have decided I'm going to change myself. I'm no longer an introvert. Now I'm an extrovert. You don't get to choose.
So does the being sometimes come out, or it actually stays inside, like you mentioned? Like, does
So-
it come out, and if someone portrays it and says, yeah, this is my being, this is me, and it shows to the world, or it keeps inside, like you
Yes,
said?
so the being manifests with external things. Like, in the becoming is where you manifest your being. So basically what I'm saying is, if you work on your being very well, then you're going to manifest your becoming. I give you a quick example. You want to become a pilot. That's your becoming. That's your calling. You say, I'm very, very motivated. I want to have a career as a pilot. But in your being, maybe when you're a baby, I don't know what causes these things because I'm not the expert psychologist, but you know people who are afraid of heights, right? Now,
I'm one of them.
yeah, now
Like, huge.
you have not yet worked on that for your phobia for heights. I don't remember the English word for it, but it has a word for it. And you want to become a pilot, my dear friend. If you do not first go back and work on, like, read a little bit about how do I overcome my phobia for heights? How do I, because I said the being is something you improve progressionally. It's not in a constant state of flux. And you want to become a pilot. I think you'll be one of the worst pilots in the world. A pilot who's afraid of heights. How are you going to land smoothly? How are you going to take off? How are you? I give you another example. You're afraid of blood, as an example, bodily fluids, blood, and whatever, and you want to become a surgeon. Please, come on.
How about it's one way of fighting your fears?
Like, let me confront them.
Yeah, like let me just face my fears and
You see-
and take away the being.
You're not taking it away, you're improving your being. So I'm bringing this topic up today because all the things I've taught recently, people have not understood the essence of this conversation. It has been about being. I've been creating that self-awareness about people going and looking internally before they come out to the external world and start tweaking things east-west and making noise and being quiet and, I don't know, doing all sorts of things. People struggle to manifest themselves out there. In fact, some of you who are listening to this and you're psychologists, it's how you tell people's characteristics. Like you just sit there and look at visual cues and know this one has a conflict internally. That's how psychologists tell, because you've not worked on your being. Now, psychologists are terrified by a person who has actually gotten their being in order, because the only thing they'll pick up from this person is that they're deflecting. Like they'll talk to you and you're just quiet. Or maybe if you say something, it's a deflection. They'll ask you, do you like tea or coffee? And you're like, what do you like? Tell me first. Are you a tea or coffee person? Like they repeat the same question. And the psychologist is like, this person has taken some time to internalize themselves. They are not jumpy or goofy so self-awareness is a very, very long journey.
NASA, I wouldn't want us to go so far until I am convinced and satisfied
About being.
about not this pendulum, the
Yes,
swinging
the
from
flux.
the flux from.
Yeah.
Just, can you stop swinging that? Oh my God, it gets me more confused. I'm like, the flux?
Listen, we have this guy called Snoop Dogg,
Yes.
a musician.
Yes. A rapper.
He wakes up one day, he says he's going to sing reggae, then swings back into hip hop.
Yes.
He wakes up one day and says, I'm now a Muslim,
Yes.
and then he swings back to Christianity.
Yes.
And we've seen people like that. I have a
Yes.
friend who wanted, his dream was to become a priest. Okay?
Yeah.
So he goes to study priesthood. Later on, I think he loved women. He chooses he wants to be a Muslim. So he gets into the Muslim culture where he can,
Have more than one. That one.
and then later he swings back out of the Muslim culture and says, I'm going back to being a priest. When you find these kind of people who are flexing from one value, one belief, would you want to be in the space of such people?
It's not a problem because they are in the becoming. Like I'm going back to the definition.
Self-identification?
Right? So Snoop Dogg can become a Muslim, then become Christian, then become Buddhist, then become different things, right? There's one thing that we don't know about Snoop Dogg because we only know his public persona. We don't know his being. So we don't know if Snoop Dogg is an
His
introvert
being is
or an
smoking.
extrovert. No. We don't know. We don't.
Do you think there are people who struggle with their being?
A lot of us do. That's why we're having this conversation. So actually 90% of the world struggle with this because I'm explaining to Jesse the flux thing. So the flux with Snoop Dogg is with the becoming, because becoming is the external, the way he interacts with the external world. And that's why you're able to know this information. Now, his being, we did not know. I don't like bringing up controversial conversations, but for instance, we had I think most of us growing up, we had our favorite rappers where we used to say Mez, P. Diddy, Jay-Z, and all those guys. We never knew his being, P. Diddy, that
So
he's a
that's the
violent
Diddy.
man. That he's a violent man. You know what I
Yes.
mean, right? So we only until he actually reacted and we saw the videos recently when he was doing, you know what he did. I'm not even going to
when he
repeat
was
that
just
stuff.
being Diddy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how we know these people's being. Look at R. Kelly as well. R. Kelly has very lovely music. We did not know that in his being. I'm not even going to continue that conversation.
He was a pedo.
So what I'm talking about,
As sad as it sounds, though.
so what I'm
Very
talking
sad.
about here is the internal. No, it's not even internal. It's the who you are, right? So, like I mentioned earlier on, Jesse mentioned about Snoop Dogg going to become a Muslim, then going back to being Christian. One thing we don't know about Snoop Dogg, unless if he comes out and tells us, and we hope he's not even lying, because people lie, especially these entertainers. we don't know if he's an introvert or an extrovert. We don't know if he's violent or not, because so far so good, no cases have come out. We don't know if he's claustrophobic. We don't know what his favorite color is. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So the being is something most people do not share publicly. It's internal. In fact, very few people get to know about your being. Usually it's family members who are close to you. Usually it's your spouse. Usually it's like those very close friends. The becoming is what most people know because you're out there in the public, or you're out there in your career, or you're out there in I don't know, in the world and whatever. Becoming is what you put out in the world. And becoming is usually something that you don't get to really feel bad about because you can constantly keep moving along the
Yeah, but
flux.
also the world will judge you differently, I'm assuming, when you're becoming overly becoming. Like, you keep changing positions. I mean, one day you're an
It's
artist.
okay. It's okay.
One day you want to be an accountant. I mean, don't you think the world looks at you different, like a confused person? Like
Yes, but
there's
the
no
world-
stability there.
But that's
Guma
the thing.
kumurongo, guma
But that's the
kumurongo.
thing. The world doesn't matter. That's why we're having this conversation today. If you're out there listening to us, when it comes to your being, the world doesn't matter. The world doesn't have their stuff in order. In fact, the world is in constant turmoil. The world is not static. I give you a quick example. Yesterday was night time. Today is daytime. Tomorrow it will be raining there. If the world was daytime forever, don't you think we would also be in constant, in a constant state, right? So I'm actually very, 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 very pulled towards those people who are in a constant flux, like Snoop Dogg, who keep changing their mind. For me, mentally, it tells me
Does that mean that you're the creative one here?
no,
Like
no,
you
no,
don't
no.
want to
No,
keep
no.
constant.
It just simply tells me I have a good specimen to study that has not yet nailed down his being. It means in his being, the foundations are broken. That's why he's constantly out there. It's a constant call for attention. So this guy has some issues going on internally with his being, so it manifests in the becoming. If you notice these people who are always out there trying to call for attention, once you sit down with them and have an honest conversation, you'll come to realize they'll tell you. I remember one of the basketballers was talking about how he has like 5 different types of cereal in his house, even though he does not eat cereal. And he was asked, I think by Oprah, why that is, and he said when he was growing up in the Bronx,
He
in the
never
hood,
had
he never had
cereal,
cereal.
yeah.
So that's the being. He actually confessed something about his being, but in the becoming, it shows he has 5.
So he's trying to compensate his
Exactly.
missing out on his being.
Exactly.
Listen,
Interesting.
you have a 16-year, 17-year, 18-year-old. I would understand when they struggle with adjusting to become. I think I would have a problem. A 75-year-old trying to become, to identify
I
themselves.
don't have a problem with that.
Listen, if a child told you, leave me alone because I am in the process to become what I want to become, from caterpillar to a butterfly, where is the space for redirection, guidance? If anyone chose on your information today to say, I am evolving, I am becoming, I need to find my being.
So I think they have things mixed up. So being, let me even repeat the definition. So being is who you are. Being is what makes you you. Has nothing to do with everything external, right? And for being, you go on improving that over time as you learn. The more knowledge, the more life. And by the way, your parents or all the other external factors, they're not going to care how fast you become. They're only going to come and hit your being. It's like flowing through water constantly in your life, right? So the things you experience in your life, I think one of those motivational speakers, Vusi, he has one of his episodes where he talks about gods and gardens and and he kind of defines it. He says, all your experiences up until today are your becoming, and then your being is literally who you are from the get-go. There are certain things you don't get to choose in your being. You do not choose those things. Those ones were given to you directly. You were born that way. You know what I mean? So giving you the answer, Jesse, it doesn't matter what age you are. Even when you're 75 and you're still becoming, it means during the time when you were developing, you missed a stage, or they call it pre-life crisis, right? You missed a stage. Like, I'll give you an example. There are people out there, I mean, it depends on the time of like the world you grew up in, right? There are people who grew up in a time, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, when the world was at World War I, World War II. They'll tell you from the time he was 16, he was in the pits and he was a soldier. and then they'll tell you he fought wars for 40 years and he stopped being a soldier, maybe a retired soldier, when he was like maybe from 16 to maybe 56. This guy fought for 40 years. Now this guy only started having like enjoying a little bit of life when he was 56, and then he has only been enjoying life for like maybe 10 to 15 years, and the guy is now 60, and then you find him with a convertible, one of those Ferrari things.
Which he should have driven in his 30s.
But he was fighting. This guy was in the pits in Normandy. He was, you know what I mean? Now, you're not going to blame this guy for having a pre-life crisis because he only knows war all his life. Now he has just started. These are the guys you find playing with their grandchildren, with their toys and all that. And they'll tell you, I did not have a childhood. For me, I was thrown into this world when we were at war. That's why I'm saying I'm taking away that misconception of at 75 you cannot become.
Would someone, because my assumption there is you are still discovering who you are.
You're 75?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly, because
yes.
if you're still trying
the
out things.
75-year-old man who married an 18-year-old girl was becoming.
He was he's becoming, because becoming, all of us are becoming.
I think there's a problem here.
No, Jesse. Becoming, we are all becoming. That one is forever. It's constant.
You're trying to say we are all searching ourselves. We will
Yes,
forever search ourselves.
That one is forever. But the being, that one you do not search for. And I repeat this. You are who you are. Try and change it. Try and do whatever you want. You cannot run away from yourself. Like salvation is here. Now, the only thing you can do about yourself is to improve on your self-awareness. When we say self-awareness, people don't understand this statement. Self-awareness is looking deep into yourself and knowing this is what I am. I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to manage it because sometimes it makes other people uncomfortable. I get what I'm saying.
I get
Trying to change it is a fruitless effort. It's how Snoop keeps jumping between different. So he's concentrating on becoming instead of being. He needs to go back and fix that one issue that makes him seek for attention by jumping into this and that and that and that. And then he'll stay in one place. He'll be like, okay, now I am okay with myself.
I have finally found myself.
Now let me
and this is
manage.
who I am.
So the being is something you manage. The becoming is something that you're going to be manifesting out there. That's why I'm saying you're losing your temper in public. It's because you have something you did not work on in your being. You did not quickly understand that you're a short-tempered guy, and then you know yourself and you're like, okay, so for me, I'm going to start breathing in and out whenever someone talks to me and I start losing my temper so that I discombobulate and not engage. I don't know if you're getting me very well.
I get you.
It's called self-awareness. So haven't you ever met these people who are not self-aware and in public they end up being such, I don't like using those words.
Nuisance.
Nuisance,
Yeah,
yes.
just use the word. Throw it there. It's no
and
problem.
you put them on the side. And this is even more dangerous when you have power. Like if you're like, let's say, the Sheikh of Dubai or whatever, when your word is final and you're short-tempered. So someone's going to piss you off and today you're going to throw a tantrum and you're like, I want to have them hang by tomorrow morning.
That's exactly where I was going. So sometimes the being can manifest.
Yes, it always
And you never know it has actually manifested.
It always manifests. Now, if it manifests and you're self-aware and you've taken some time to train yourself on the being part, you'll be like, I'm very short-tempered, and someone says something very annoying to you and you're the Sheikh of Dubai, you'll be like, take him away before I start making wrong decisions right now. Like, please, disappear. You surround yourself with those so-called advisors who understand you very well. They're like, he's in a bad mood on Mondays. Don't go in talking about how we failed to finish the bridge because you'll be the guy hanging tomorrow. So they always know things of how to manage you. Also, you know how to manage yourself. So just answering your question, becoming is in constant flux because being is the foundation. And if you don't work on it very well, then in your becoming, you're those guys who are constantly seeking attention, constantly seeking approval from others, constantly. Now, the guys who are not in flux, the ones you like Jesse, the ones who are not always changing their mind, have actually taken some time to digest their being and they are self-aware. He'll tell you, I know myself very well and I never tempt myself with the following things.
Because I won't handle.
I will not make it back from there.
Yeah.
I don't go in this direction because I don't do this. I do not do that because I don't do this. And people make fun of these people, but they've actually taken time to master who they are, and then they become what they are. Now, another thing I'm going to say, and I want to repeat this.
I think it takes a million years, or it takes some time for someone to actually understand who they are, and so they can throw it out there and they can be the becoming.
Well, it can be a short time if you're
intentional about it.
About becoming that, fully aware of
About
what you
becoming your
made.
being.
No,
Yeah.
okay. So we're interchanging the words. So the thing is, being you'll only know if you're self-aware. So have you met those kind of people who are in leadership and he lashes out, like throws a tantrum because he can't handle pressure to his maybe subordinates or employees or people, and then an hour later this person shows up and is like, guys, I am very very sorry. I do not know how to handle pressure. I lost it. I will never do that again. That person is self-aware. Most of the others, when he realizes it later, because everyone eventually realizes
Ego
it, yeah,
can't allow.
they'll be like, yeah, but I'm the boss, I don't have to go back and apologize.
Would
to
you
these
say
people.
that about President Ruto and how he calls back the financial bill, says trash the thing?
No, I don't think
I think for me it was out of pressure.
I
Just
also
did
don't. I think it's very, very naive to assume that whatever a president like Ruto is deciding, he's deciding as himself.
No.
Exactly.
It's
So
just the
that's not
external
even a good
pressure,
example. That's not even a good
So we
example.
cannot attribute the decisions to
No,
himself.
no. Presidents don't decide themselves. They're not strong men. Presidents have like a large number of apparatuses, decisions, data, so many things. Like, trust me, that's business. And by the way, being a president is also part of becoming. It's not being. Being is who you are when you're not being president. When you're back home.
So
Listen.
most presidents become.
No, most presidents are becoming because that's the public persona that you know.
Yeah.
You do not know their private persona.
Listen, I just want to take you back to an example, an incident that happened just across the borders here the other day. A 17-year-old, must have been 17 or 18, who took her life. A young girl who did not want to study sciences, but had a mother who wanted her to become a scientist. She never wanted it. In her, she felt she was easy to go with arts. And she was pushed to the wall to take on sciences. The mother said, I would not pay school fees if you do not take on the science subjects. She escaped out of school, committed suicide, took her life. And here's the question. Can the environment or people around us dictate who will become?
It's in the definition, please.
I think most parents, that's where they blunder. It's very important to guide someone in their becoming. I think you can guide someone in their becoming. However, like he explained it very well, you cannot guide someone in their being because it's natural. It's the inner person, the inner ghost I am fighting with, and I'm trying to bring it out. So if you're going to tell your child they must take sciences, then you should guide them, or else you'll get into what happened, or else listen to them, listen to their being, which is the being, right? The inner them.
Difficult
Which I
conversation
also
to listen
think-
to the being.
Which I also think most teenagers are not sure of their being. Still,
They are sure.
Almost Gen Z.
They're
most
very,
Gen Zs, I agree.
they're very sure.
They haven't mastered what their being is. They have no self-awareness.
They're sure of their being. They just don't know why it is like that. Do you get what I'm saying? So it is upon us as the older generation to actually guide them and explain some of these things of why. So the thing is, a teenager is being. They know what they are, but they're interacting with the becoming, which is the external forces. And the external forces...
Which overpowers the being.
Yes, emotions, hormones, and
But
all
I
those
disagree
things.
with you, Nessa. I want to disagree because there's this conversation I hate to indulge in, that of identifying or confirming if I am a woman or if I'm a man or if I am both. And you're saying, yeah, they know who they are, but they can't confirm.
No, it's not that they can't confirm. I'm explaining myself very well. Before you interjected there, I was saying they know their being. They know who they are. They just don't understand why the external world interacts the way it does. Because this is the external world. Like that one who took their life, is the external world they're experiencing is number one, their parent. Their parent is external because your parent does not live in your brain. Your parent is another person you live with in the house. The other mistake parents make is they think they own their children. You don't own these people.
No, you don't.
These are just
Whose
people
are they?
You
Well, you don't own them.
You don't own
See
these
how,
people.
see how Jesse just sounded?
Yes, they just
Most
live-
parents sound like
Yeah, they
Jesse.
just live in
I
the
own
house.
you. You're under my roof.
Yeah.
I am your mother. I am your father, and I literally own you.
But who
Only
else
we don't
is?
own them.
No, you don't own
We
them.
just give birth to these humans, and
And you're supposed to pass on all the knowledge you have so that you ensure that there may be better human beings than you are, depending on the environment. And I think, for instance, for this case, it's quite a sad story because as a parent, if I'm looking at my child and they don't want to take on maybe sciences as an example, I'm going to want to find out where their strengths are, because first of all, you're going to study your child and be like, I've noticed they're not very good at maybe calculations and things and stuff like that. And then you'll tell them, okay, here's the thing. I, as your parent, would have loved that you take on the sciences, but I don't think you want it and you have your own reasons. Let's try what you want and see how it goes. But should you change your mind at some point, my ticket is still open. I still think, and by the way, you even explain to them
Nasa,
why.
You see, that's the old, that's the new parenting. You see, parenting has changed. Parenting has changed totally. In my era, and probably Jesse's era, you had no say.
A slap in the mouth.
Please, you are going to do sciences. I have ordered you.
I have spoken.
I have spoken, and I'm
I
done paying
want
your
to pay the school
tuition.
fees.
You know,
I own you.
So I think parenting has changed along the way, but also I think the young people or the parenting of these days is, I still sound very local like that. It's spoiling children.
Mental
I
health.
think we're giving these kids a lot of powers.
No, we are not spoiling them. I'm going to tell you guys to be very, very careful because
Shouldn't we stick to the old parenting of I say you do this?
one of those very great musicians said, the world and the wheel is in spin. The last will be the first and the first will be the last, because the times they're changing, you know. And in this world that we have nowadays, you're going to want to raise your children in a way that you teach them how to deal with their emotions, not the skills, not the old parenting is about how you get skills, how you digest information and all that.
Isn't that why we are raising a lot of spoiled brats lately?
No.
I'm just saying.
We are using an old method in a new world. I'll give you a quick example. Apple has a new thing they call Apple AI, and on an iPad now, if you're taking notes and you write an equation, it will solve it for you. In our time in school, if you had a scan radio, just a radio for listening to, they would take you to they'll take you to they'll take you to the staff room like they found you with a bomb, like you brought a gun to school. A calculator was
I
forbidden.
think it's going to be hard for most parents to adjust that parenting has changed and so many things have to change
The
along the way.
world has changed, not
The
just
world
parenting.
is spinning entirely. The world has
Kids
changed. It's
of
the fast-
nowadays are much, much smarter. And I'm telling you this, they're much smarter because they have an appendage, which is a smartphone. A smartphone is part of you now. Back in the day, you had to know how to do 3 times 3 equals 9. You had your mathematical tables in the back of your head and calculations. These days, give a child any number, they'll calculate it because they'll just type it into
Which is very
fantastic.
wrong.
No,
No,
I would
it's
say
okay.
so.
Which for me makes people their brain lazy. This
No,
whole AI story
no,
is
no,
making
no, no.
No,
it's making a lot
listen,
of young people
my
lazy.
interpretation
I am
is
sorry, but I think
my
you need to use your
interpretation
brain.
is kids, yes, they are smarter, they have knowledge, but the problem we have is the lack of wisdom on how to apply this knowledge. They know things.
Where
yes.
does it come from? It comes from us. That's why I'm talking to you guys about being and becoming. As your child is becoming, they are interacting with the external forces, right? So your job as a parent is, number one, to teach them how to hone their emotions, which is their being, self-awareness. Now, when they jump into the world and external forces hit them back, they will know. They will be like, my parent taught me that I must say sorry whenever I am rude. I must say thank you whenever, like that self-awareness is there. A lot of parents nowadays are concentrating on making that money, and then they think they'll
And
send
giving
their
them
kids
tabs
to
and
private
not- and-
school
exactly.
and to the psychologist, and then they will let these kids interact with the external world. In the external world, you'll get slapped very well. This world doesn't care who you are. You're going to get a slap. A big one, a serious one. That's why you'll find a lot of kids nowadays are depressed because they posted something and then they didn't get likes. Come on, man. You keep saying those chants of, I don't care if you love me or hate me. Listen, the world doesn't care. People are busy out there struggling with different things to like your post. We're not going to like your post. In fact,
What's there to like anyway?
yeah, we're not going to like your post. We're not going to like your post. And now you're going to resort to maybe making it a bit skimpier, or you're going to post maybe a bit of nudity so you can get
you're
more
creating
likes.
attention.
Yes, you
Yes.
want that attention. Now, when I see you posting these things, now this is me being judgmental publicly, which is something I never do.
Privately.
Which you have just done.
When I see you posting these kind of things, in my head, I'm like, I want to meet your father. Your father should have told you they love you. Because you're out there seeking that kind of approval from others, but your parents should have told you they love you, or your father figure or your mother figure should have hugged you enough and told you, listen, you don't have to post those things. We still love you anyway.
No, I just saw a picture, actually a video on X, a girl who was, they broke up with a boy. She decided to undress and go to the streets in Nairobi just because she's heartbroken.
Oh, really? Is that how you deal with heartbreak? So those are the young people we're talking about.
No,
There's
no.
guidance.
I disagree.
If you did research on her, I think she's a
No,
she's
but
a
I
Gen
dis-
Z.
I
There's no
disagree.
way. There's no way.
There's
that's
one
the
part I disagree with
mislead-
you.
Which one?
The part of the young people.
Do you think someone in their rightful mind, in their 30s or 40s,
Yes,
would
I
do
know
that?
people who are in that age, in our age bracket, that do these kind of things because they missed a stage as well. And for them, it's even more pathetic. Like, it's so pathetic to see someone our age lashing out
Very
for attention.
pathetic.
They're also there. So I don't think it has nothing to do with the
age
generation
bracket?
or the age bracket. I'm talking about the being part. I think a lot of people are not self-aware. I told you 90% of this world, they are not self-aware. It reflects in their choices. It reflects in the things they buy. It reflects in the things they consume. It reflects in the way they handle themselves in public.
Yeah, like I saw the other day
tantrums.
someone actually having, like an adult, like my age, someone eating a lollipop, like seriously.
No, but
you're
it's-
an adult. No, in
but
public.
it's even very, very, very simple. You can notice it like in leadership, right? You go and see a lot of people who are like in their 40s, in their 50s, and their bosses, they call them bosses in quotes. And these guys act like they're in nursery school. Like a youngin, one of these young people, 20s, will correct his spelling of something, and his reaction is, "You're fired." That means you're just not yet in touch with yourself, because you cannot be threatened by a 20-year-old correcting your spelling. If you're wrong, you're wrong. You'll take it, and then you call them into the office quietly, and you tell them, "Okay, here's the thing. I'm very, very pissed at you because you corrected me publicly. You made me look stupid. But at the same time, thank you for the correction. I did not know that the spelling of diary, there's diary for milk and then there's diary for the book. I now will be very, very cautious about my spellings, but I would advise you one thing going forward in your career. Do not correct your elders or your leaders publicly. You can correct me in private. It makes me very uncomfortable. I like that about you. What I don't like about you is that you did it in public and you made me look stupid." And then that conversation is over and you're back to work and there's no reprimanding. But if you jump up and lash out and be like, "You're fired," it means you're threatened. It means you're still... You
Struggling
missed
with your-
a step, yes.
Let's Kigali in the morning, the 8 at 8, 5 minutes to 9 o'clock. We have NASA in the studios, and of course, our very own Juliana, who is making her maiden show today on Kigali in the morning. NASA, quick ones before we get into the news. Why are people tending to focus more on becoming than being?
It's because the world is now in the society of the spectacle, where your public persona is far more valuable to the external world than your actual persona. The being is your actual persona. The public persona is how you interact with the world. So people are out there falling for this social media thing. Hey, I have this new car. Hey, I'm in the gym. Hey, I'm in this and that. All those things are good and fine, but you need to work on yourself privately. Look at religion as well. People are donating publicly so they can be seen that they give money to charity and all that. But there are people who silently donate and you'll never know about it. They'll tell you, "Don't write me on the group. Don't put me part of the contribution list." Because my donation has nothing to do with people seeing me. It has something to do with me being okay with making this cause happen. You know what I mean? And they would argue that they're doing this so that they can encourage others to donate, but it's all bollocks. It's just because they're seeking attention and likes. So yes.
I kind of disagree with NASA. Seriously, NASA, do we post our pictures in the gym and working out because we want approval from the world?
Yes,
there?
you
No.
do. Yes,
Just
you do.
want our friends
Yes,
to know
you
that
do.
we've been at
We
the
just
gym.
want to say that we are in this thing.
No, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Because let me tell you, you're not the only guys that go to the gym. There are so many people who go to the gym and they're very good at it,
who
and they're
cares
not
if they
posting.
don't
That's your
post about
business.
yourself.
If
That's them.
I'm the posting kind of person, I love it that way. It makes me feel good. Not because I want any approval because I want
They're
want
just
likes
in
and all
the
that.
element.
Now, this defensiveness,
the life we're in.
This defensiveness you're all jumped into is why I'm here in the first place. I am here to make you guys very uncomfortable. So I think
You
now
make me
I
feel
know.
guilty, like I shouldn't post my pictures in the
Now
gym
I know
anymore.
your pressure points, right? I've now known
Not
something.
yet.
So trust me, guys. If your reason, okay, so the posting is not the issue. As let's get this as a takeaway. If you're the posting type, it's okay. It has nothing to do with likes and whatever.
You are in your
But-
authentic self.
Exactly.
Being.
Yes, you're an extrovert and whatever. So, but look into your internal self. If you post and keep checking your likes, then you're in another category. You know what I mean? There's people who are visual, who like posting and stuff like that. They create their content and post it, but they don't post it for the sake of likes. They post it because they're a bit visual. They want to see how they create this and that. And right, that's a very small category. The rest of you all need to work on your being.
But listen, before the phone era, what were people doing to find validation?
They were writing on the Facebook wall at school. We always
No,
had
Facebook.
those.
We didn't have Facebook then.
No,
was-
we had those walls.
Oh, we had walls in class. by
Yes, the
way.
ones where they would
Never
write
forget.
and say Olivia dates Jesse. That was the Facebook wall. They had notes. You know those notes you pass around in class. Those were called DMs. People used to DM each other with a piece of paper. They used to go and throw those stones on the windows so you can call someone. That's called you poke that person, like you ping them. We just converted
They were
all this
there, it's
into
just that
digital.
they-
They were there.
Yeah, it's just that they were not in real like social
Exactly.
and the digital
What
world.
about these guys who write in toilets on the door?
That's
Like
a
never
wall.
forget Jesse.
That's a wall. That's the likes they get. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
then
so
they're being.
The being is going to always keep improving forward. Like the take home, I'm going to repeat the two so people don't confuse the two, because we're using English words like being and becoming, but what we mean here is totally different. So the being is who you are, what makes you you, regardless of who you interact with. The being has nothing to do with your children, your spouse, or any of the things that you own or any of that. The being is really who you are. So if you're an introvert, if you're an ambivert, if you're an extrovert, that's your being. And if you're short-tempered or claustrophobic or any of that stuff. Now the becoming is what you do in the external world. The becoming, if you concentrate, now the take home is if you concentrate on fixing your being, you'll easily become. You don't have to work on the becoming, to be honest. It will flow freely.
So that the point here is concentrate on your being.
Yes, forget
It will
about the
actually
becoming.
manifest in your becoming.
Yeah, stop trying very hard, like on the becoming. Guys, if you post stuff, I'm going to troll you. I have a troll account. I'll open it and troll you guys.
You'll have to troll me. I can assure I'll give you all the content.
I'll send some reading resources from some authors on being and becoming and see how people can become self-aware. Self-awareness is a very hard thing to find right now. And the most pathetic thing is when you find people who are a bit older, but they are still not self-aware. It's quite sad.
It's not an easy job, I guess.
To become self-aware,
Yeah.
very
Yes.
difficult one.
Very
You don't
sad.
find so many people who are very comfortable in their skin. Very few that you find that are very comfortable in their skin. Thank you so much, NASA, for bringing insight.
It's always a pleasure.
Being,
Nasa the introvert.
becoming.
Did I just say that on
I
air? Are we still on
I
air
can
though?
neither confirm nor deny those allegations.